as I thought of this blessed are the peacemakers thing, I wanted to begin by this idea that of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, right? Because it's one of the most fundamental philosophies of justice that justifies revenge and retaliation, right? When people are polled, what verse do you know of the Bible? It is often the number one answer. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. The verse which does appear in the Bible, it even says an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life. It was the idea of lex talionis. That's the formal theological phrase for it, right? And it's where we get the idea of retaliation from. Lex talionis, that you could do reciprocal harm, right? So if someone hurt you, then justice is hurting them back. But what's interesting is the people that really study this and know this, many of my Jewish rabbinical friends say, we've actually really misunderstood and abused this idea of an eye for an eye. It was not meant to be a license for revenge. It was meant to be a limitation on how much damage and harm you could do back. So we might think of it rather as an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, no more. You had to stop with the damage that was done to you. Now, it's interesting because even within that philosophy of returning harm for harm, that would limit the casualties of what you could do revenge for in, say, after October 7th, right? Like, you might be able to make an argument that Israel could take 1,200 lives, roughly, because that's what was lost. But there is absolutely no room for making an argument that you should starve children or kill tens of thousands of folks in Gaza. It was to stop that violence. Right now, or after September 11th, just to bring it home, right? 3,000 lives were taken. We grieve those lives, but it would never justify killing tens of thousands of people in Afghanistan or Iraq, right? And so this idea that you could return harm for harm is an interesting one because the idea was to stop the violence, not to perpetuate it. And yet, here's what's interesting. When Jesus comes, I know we're all not religious up in here, but I'm just going to say, when Jesus comes, he said, you've heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Moses told you this, but I tell you this, don't even return the harm. You might have a right, but that doesn't mean it's right? It doesn't mean that's the best justice that we could do. So Jesus challenges that idea, and he's very familiar with it and pushes back. And this is where as a Christian, I do think Jesus was not the abolition of the law or the negation of the old law, but the fulfillment of it. So stopping the spiral of violence was a good start, but then how about not even repaying harm for harm? So in the context that Jesus did that is very interesting because it's in the middle of an execution. A woman is about to be executed, and Jesus interrupts the scene, and he ends up saying, let the one who is without sin cast the first stone. He ends up disarming the violence and challenging this notion that we should return violence, that violence would heal the harm, right? So I like to think that that idea, we know like our parents teach us 2 wrongs don't make a right. Amen? And yet, like, we don't rape someone who rapes to show that rape is wrong. And yet, when it comes to violence, we often divert back to this idea that we can kill to show that killing is wrong, whether it's the death penalty or October 7th or, September 11th, or right here on our own street, someone hurts us, so we hurt them back. But the way of peacemaking that Jesus blessed are the peacemakers, is refusing to meet evil on its own terms and transcending the evil by wearing evil down with love. Amen? And it's why Dr. King would say, not only does Jesus tell us not to kill, but Jesus tells us not to hate. That hate is too big a burden to bear, and so we are going to choose love